So if you're following the process, in this lesson we're going to look at some fine-tuning techniques. So how do you create something like this from our separate elements? And this is a starting point we're going to use for this lesson. Well, obviously in your case this will be different, but I hope the technique I show you will give you some freedom to do whatever you need to start linking your characters together and seamlessly combining different elements. So we took a little peek at a technique in the previous lesson of actually using the brush tool and kind of following, even if you're using a mouse with some smoothing applied, to give yourself a starting point and create your own custom path. Now personally, I'd recommend not using that technique when you're starting out. I'm going to show you a technique you might find a little bit easier, but in some cases you'll need to use the technique that works best for the situation. So here's what I think is a little easier and might save you some time. So first of all, we want to outline all of our type. So we're going to do that for both the base serif font and our script style letter that we're going to be borrowing a portion from. And I'm going to duplicate down just so I've still got those originals if I need to refer back to them. And looking again at where exactly we want to position this. And I'm going to do this version roughly because it can be quite time consuming when you do it precisely. But I'll kind of show you the before and after and just roughly the technique you need to use to do this. So with these two positioned on top of each other, you want to select them both and use the shape builder tool. So the shortcut for that is Shift M. And with the shape builder, first of all, I want you to hold Alt and start deleting away the portions of that script character that you no longer need. And as long as you have an overlap, as you hold Alt and you click and drag, it's going to allow you to delete away. As simply as that. So I'm sure already you can see how useful this tool is and why it makes this technique such a time saver. So as long as there's some kind of overlap, as you hover, you're going to see the shape builder identifies these are two different elements you're hoping to merge or subtract. So hold Alt and click and just take care you're not deleting anything you wanted to keep. And then when you get to some of the fine tuning points, I'm going to zoom in up here. Here there's no clear overlap, so we'd have to address this little jagged portion that's sticking out. Here on the left, that's quite nice. I think that runs quite nicely. So I'd leave this here. You could begin selecting anchor points and kind of deleting away and really fine tuning this. The only anchor point I'm going to manipulate is this one here. So sometimes when you've used the shape builder, you'll have almost a shadow. You'll have a portion of this left from both objects because they were overlapped. So you may have to apply this twice. So for this top lying anchor point, just very roughly going to put it up here. I'm going to get rid of those curves which were attached to it by using the anchor point tool. The shortcut for that is Shift C. So I've moved that up out of the way. Then for this underlying shape, I'm going to simply, with a pen tool, click to remove that anchor point. Bring up my anchor point tool again and click to remove the curve we had applied to that. And as I zoom out, that's nice now. That's tidied that up into a nice smooth flowing arc. So I'm not going to give kind of a tutorial on using the pen tool, the anchor points, the anchor point tool, because I think that overlaps with other lessons. Hopefully you know some of those techniques already. If you don't, find other resources to help get you up to speed with that. But the main thing we wanted to achieve here is just quickly using the shape builder tool to, once we position our characters as we want them to overlap, delete away the bits we don't want. And then what you can do as a final step, if I select all of this together and bring up the shape builder tool again, Shift M, is click and drag. You might want to zoom in to do this, to merge these remaining portions together. So once you're happy, remember I had to tidy up that little jagged portion that was sticking out. Once you're happy with that, merge together what's left, and then you have no kind of overlapping shapes that are going to cause you trouble in future. Now this here, if I merge this, I then created a single shape from these two characters. I'm going to do that. I don't see that causing any problems, so I'm quite happy to do that. And that is now one shape. So to me, that's quite a quick and easy technique. As soon as you've finished your experimentation and you know which elements of these characters you want to overlap, the Shape Builder tool lets you delete away and create something new very efficiently. Now, if you wanted to fine tune, let's say you weren't happy with the width, we explored before using the brush tool, creating your own path, using the width tool. But what if you wanted to just fine tune what you have here already? Well, again, that comes under use of anchor points and manipulating anchor points. So I'm not going to dive into great detail. That's going to make this lesson huge. But just to kind of quickly show you the direction you want to head with this, if you bring up the direct selection tool, the shortcut for that is A, and click on either a path or an anchor point, you can literally click and drag to start manipulating these. Now, if you click a path, you'll notice it's changing the curves, it's changing the shape as you do that. If I undo and I click instead of an anchor point, it doesn't change your angles. So it allows you to kind of manipulate and drag without your angles being altered until you come to a crunch point like this, where the handles begin to overlap a little. So as I say, I'm not going to give you a crash course on using this tool and exactly what the control handles do, but you can find that out from other videos. But from this point here, if you did work your way along, grabbing these anchor points, you can grab a few at once, and just adding a little more width to this, you can see that it's quite easy to add just a little bit of extra width if you need it. Or conversely, if you wanted to make something a little more narrow, as I look at this, apologies if this is a little small on your screen, I can see there's just one anchor point here on the inside of this curve. So if I were to select that and drag it down, that would be a very simple way of making this portion as thin as I like without without damaging the curves and the structure of the rest of this. So it really is easy from that starting point to kind of tweak and make some further fine tuning to this. So once you're happy, particularly when you zoom out with the way this looks, zoom in and try to look for any issues, any kind of rogue anchor points or little kinks that might be sticking out. In this case here, that's looking really good. Now, something else I like to do, this kind of falls under the heading of fine tuning. You can see this is the version I decided to take forward. I've included V inside the O, which I really like. And ultimately I decided, rather than have this kind of loop back on itself, which makes it to me a little obvious it's a separate element, I've actually again used the Shape Builder tool. I've deleted that away. So we just have it run smoothly into the C. And again, if you zoom in closely and you kind of manipulate the anchor points, play with the angles, you'll be able to get that to run very smoothly, one path into another. Something I then like to do, if you haven't already, is to look at your spacing and your kerning. Now, a technique I like to use just to kind of help me visually balance things out is to create little semi-transparent blocks, and I'll drag and I'll drop them and I'll give blocks of the same width, the same color, so I can just visually see if I'm aligning things to similar widths consistently. So I did a bit of fine tuning, a bit of nudging, and it always surprises me when something looks right to your eye. Quite often, if you look at the math behind it, it does align to rule of thirds or to halves. Usually our eye is kind of looking for that consistency. So you can see I've tried to match up some of the spacing. I think it's quite nice. The distance that this ligature kind of loops down here is equal to the kind of space we've got between certain elements. There's a bit of negative space on either side of the eye, which is kind of equal to half the height of the logo. So I use this as a bit of a grid to kind of fine tune and line things up. There are different techniques you can use, but this is one I quite like. So once I've made my customizations, I grid this up and I just see if there's anywhere I need to fine tune or tweak this. And something else I've adjusted, and I'll come back here to highlight this, is this little custom eye. So this is the original, and I've kind of just joined the serifs from the top and bottom of a H and a D, and then I've created a little gap, just deleted away the eye. So we've got this kind of interesting way of portraying the eye here between those spaces. So yeah, these are the kind of fine-tuning, finishing touches that I'm looking to make. Now I'll briefly show you another example. I've actually focused on this as a case study in a previous class, so you may have come across it. But for this brand, this was the original font. This is kind of a vanilla out-of-the-box font, and I liked the idea. I liked the idea of the L sweeping below the O and the R sweeping below the S, but for me that didn't work. Whereas in this, another vanilla font, I thought it did a slightly better job. I like the way that kind of caresses the bottom of the O, and the R and S, that feels much more comfortable. So I didn't like this overall font. I wanted this font. It felt a little more thin, more elegant, but I did want this effect. So you know where this is going. I decided to merge the two together. So first of all, to show you a bad example, if I just manipulated with the anchor tool, the kind of existing path from this original font, that to me looks really clumsy. Maybe I could have done a better job with it, but it doesn't feel good at all. It's not really the effect that I'm looking for. So this is what I'm hoping to do. This is the full character swapped in. I want to pair that and the R into this overall font style. And if I scroll further down, you can see now I've literally, using that technique with the shape builder, I've taken that bottom portion and I've combined it here with the top portion of the previous L and R. And the same here with the leg of the R. But that looks quite clumsy. On the leg of the R particularly, the contrast is all wrong. So in this final version, I've just manipulated the width so it falls much more in line with the original font. There we have it, two new characters which fit beautifully, but taken from a completely different font. And merged together so that, to me, this feels quite seamless. So we've gone way over time on this video. Hopefully it's been useful for you to see some of these different techniques you can use. In the next video, we're just going to briefly revisit the technique of using the brush tool to create custom paths and how you can fine tune and get that to look professional.